ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण। So would like to welcome all of you today on this very auspicious day of Sri Narsimha Chaturdashi. So while typically this is a Wednesday, so we would have continued normally with our aspects of divinity discussion, but today, since it is Narsingha Chaturdashi, it is appropriate that we take the time today on this special day to discuss something about the glories of Lord Narsimha, and that will also throw some light on the topic of aspects of divinity, because through that pastime also we can learn so much more on the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So keeping that in mind, we will be discussing in today's class the story of Lord Narasimha, which includes, of course, the story of the great devotee Bhakta Prahlad. So, of course, I asked this question, and most of you said that that is what you prefer. So, that is what we intend to do today. The first class of the aspects of divinity I've already loaded onto YouTube and shared the URL on our WhatsApp groups. And that topic we will continue next Wednesday onwards. Yeah. So, we are continuing the topic, just that we are deferring it to next Wednesday. And also, if I, in case I forget, we intend to keep this class at 9 p.m. Malaysia time every Wednesday. The same for Saturday. We'll keep it at 9 p.m. Malaysia time. So for India, it is 6:30. And if you're any other country, UK, US, elsewhere, then please do adjust the time accordingly. Yeah, this is just to try to accommodate everybody, so all the time zones can fit into a convenient time. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। नमो ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते राधानाथ स्वामी नामिने। नमो ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष कम करोति वाचालं तुम लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम्। ओम तत्सत्। Nrsimhadev Bhagavan ki jai. So welcome again to all of you. It's a very auspicious evening, that of Narsingha Chaturdashi. Now there are innumerable forms of the Supreme Lord, and we'll be discussing this a bit more in detail when we come to the aspects of divinity. But we had briefly discussed earlier that there are certain forms of the Lord which are of full power, and there are certain forms of the Lord which are of partial power. So in the scriptures, these are described as Kala and Amsha. Now, amongst the various forms of the Lord, which we know about, because the actual number of forms of the Lord are unlimited, just like there are ocean, the ocean has unlimited waves. The Bhagavad describes that there are unlimited incarnations of the Supreme Lord. Even though Lord Shri Krishna is manifested as the original Supreme Person, as explained in the Gita and the Bhagavad, where there is no truth superior to him, but from Shri Krishna, so many innumerable forms of the Lordships appear in this world for various purposes. Again, all those purposes we will also discuss in another session. But the reason I'm bringing this up is, amongst the various manifestations of the Lord that we know in this world, there are two which are especially important. One is Lord Shri Ramachandra and another is Lord Narasimha. Because these are considered, in terms of powerful manifestations of the Lord, only in terms of certain qualities which Krishna, as the original personality of Godhead, manifests in his form. But in terms of power, it is the manifestation of the full form or the full potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we want to discuss briefly about the pastime of Lord Narasimha. This pastime appears predominantly in the Srimad Bhagavat, in the 7th canto, the 7th khanda. Now, there are also other scriptures which mention about this pastime. There is a Narasimha Puran by itself, and there are brief references in various other scriptures. But we are focusing our narration based on the descriptions which appear in the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavat. So one point before I start describing the pastime, that this beautiful story of Prahlada and Narsingha is actually a beautiful story of how a devotee who has significant challenges in his spiritual life remains steady in his spiritual determination, steady in his spiritual practice, overcomes all obstacles and attains the supreme destination. Many of us, when we start our spiritual journeys, we have different kind of obstacles. Some of us have internal obstacles. Actually, almost all of us have internal obstacles. Internal obstacles are lust, greed, anger, envy, jealousy, so on and so forth. Various attachments that we have to this world. So all of us have to deal with that. But some of us, we not only have those challenges, which we all have, but additionally may have significant challenges in the environment that we are. For example, some of us may have significant challenges because some of our family members, our close family members, may be very opposed to our practice of spiritual life. Sometimes the spouse, sometimes the parents, sometimes people at work, sometimes you're just in a country where to openly practice the principles of devotion may be very, very difficult. And I've come across many individuals who are in such situations that they cannot openly practice, but still they are so determined that they are practicing the principles of devotion with great enthusiasm and devotion. So Prahlad Maharaj is an excellent example of a devotee who had the topmost opposition. Topmost. It doesn't get worse than this. And he had that topmost opposition not just in the country. Of because it was in the country also. It was right at home. And it was from his own father. And his own father was the epitome of demoniac quality. Not just qualities, but also so extremely powerful that the whole universe was practically ruled over by his father Hiranyakashipu. So Prahlad had nowhere to go. Some of us, if we have a significant challenge in a particular place, we can say, okay, I will move out from this place and go somewhere else. But Prahlad did not have that choice. He had to stay put and firm and maintain his devotional principles in all situations because there was nowhere else to go. The whole universe was ruled over by Hiranyakashipu. And we'll discuss that story shortly. I'm just giving you a short foreword. So this is the story where the personification of demoniac qualities and the personification of divine qualities. If you remember in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we discussed the divine and demoniac nature. So Hiranyakashipu, the father of Prahlad, is a perfect example for all the demoniac qualities described there. And Prahlad Maharaj is the perfect example of all the divine qualities mentioned. And so amazing. Both are living in the same house. And this is the story of their struggle. So it's a very, very beautiful pastime. I'm going to be sharing the pastime in brief. The pastime is very, very sweet and beautiful. I will urge you to read it, preferably from the Bhagavatam. Many chapters in the Bhagavatam, if I'm not wrong, 10 plus chapters in the Bhagavad are dedicated to the pastime of Narsimha Leela. And they have not only the story, but the pastimes of Narsimha Leela are full of very beautiful, sweet, and very profound spiritual instructions, which are given by probably the youngest preacher across all the scriptures, 5-year-old Prahlad, who's preaching the highest philosophy of Bhagavad to the worst candidate possible in the entire universe, which is his father, Hiranyakashipu. So I'm going to discuss the pastime in brief. We may not be able to cover all the details, so I will let you go through it. There are numerous classes available also online, so you can take benefit of those. Very, very sweet. So let us start by giving some background of Prahlad. Prahlad's father, now this is the story before even Prahlad is born. Prahlad's father, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, two brothers, twin brothers actually, who were the sons of Kashyapa and Diti. Both of them, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, right from their birth, were extremely envious and full of all the demoniac qualities possible. In the previous cantos of the Bhagavad, the description of the story of Hiranyaksha, the brother of Hiranyakashipu, is there. And in that story, it is described how Hiranyaksha, how he exploited Mother Earth to the point that Earth got dislodged from its orbit, fell into the depths of the Garbhodak ocean, and the Lord had to appear in a beautiful Leela avatar of Lord Varaha. Varaha is the boar incarnation, where the Lord, on his tusks, he lifted Mother Earth from the bottom of the Garbhodak ocean and reinstated her back into the orbit. And in that way, he saved her. And after doing that, the Lord actually fought with Hiranyaksha. And in that very beautiful battle, the Lord defeated and killed Hiranyaksha. So when the news of Hiranyaksha's death reached Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyakashipu was besides himself. He was fuming with rage. he was very, very disappointed, very, very angry that Lord Vishnu, who's supposed to be neutral in all situations, why he is taking side of the Devatas, and why is he uh, going against the Asuras. He, being very materially conditioned, was thinking as if Lord Vishnu is taking sides. The Lord is always transcendental. And the Bhagavad explains that the Lord is only reciprocating based on how one approaches him. But being materialistic and divisive in his mentality, Hiranyakashipu starts thinking like this. And he vows that because my brother Hiranyaksha has been killed by Lord Vishnu in the form of Varaha, I vow that I will kill Lord Vishnu and drink his blood. Quite an interesting statement, also quite a foolish statement, because the Lord has already described in the Gita that avajananti ma mudaha manushim tanumashyatam param bhavam ajananto. Foolish people, they do not understand my spiritual nature. They think that I have a material body like them. They think that my body is made of flesh, bones, blood, muscles, bile, etc. like them. But no, the Lord's body is spiritual. But Hiranyakashipu was thinking of the Lord like that, that I will kill him and then I will rule over the universe. So having thought like that, Hiranyakashipu started actually making a plan how to go about. So the first thing he said is, I must first weaken the enemy as I am going to make myself powerful. So Hiranyakashipu actually, even though he was envious of the Lord, he was very learned in the Vedas. Just like Ravan. Of course, Ravan comes later. Ravan comes in Treta Yuga. This story happened in Satya Yuga. But just like Ravan, Hiranyakashipu was also very learned. And he knew how the universal system works. If you remember in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord explains the system of Yajna. So Hiranyakashipu was thinking, yes, because of the mutual cooperation of the Devatas and the people on the earth, especially the Brahmanas, the priests, the great souls, by their guidance, all the dharmic activities and yajnas are going on. And by that, all the universal arrangement is working very nicely. The Devatas are getting nourished by the yajna offerings of the Brahmanas. So he ordered all his troops, go to earth, ensure that there is no more worship, no more yajna. Stop everything. In fact, not just that, he in fact ordered his troops to kill any priest, Brahmana, yogi, tapasvi that could be found. And when that happened, truly the Devatas started becoming weak. So the Devatas, seeing that the Vedic culture, Brahmanical culture is being attacked, they actually became very concerned. And this is how demoniac people think, because for demoniac people, they know that if we have to rule the world in the way we want, then we must put an end to genuine religious and spiritual practices in this world. So those who are Asuric, they always try to first attack the very root of religion. So at that time, he attacked on earth those who are actually the upholders of the dharma of the Vedas, which were essentially the Brahmanas. And he tried to suppress and crush them. The same approach is taken even nowadays. Those who are against the dharma are trying either by crushing or killing, or by trying to destroy the faith of the people in the saints, in the Vedas, in the sadhus, through various ways. In that way, they weaken the spiritual culture, and then the demoniac culture gets strength. To the extent that the light decreases, to that extent only darkness can come. Darkness cannot exist if there is light. So Hiranyakashipu wanted to put all the light off so that darkness will take over. So the devatas are very concerned that this is happening. So they actually uh, were praying, and they went to Brahma, and they started complaining. So meanwhile, what also happened as this was happening, Hiranyakashipu on the other side also wanted to develop his own power. He was thinking that Brahma has so much power, he has so much control. I want a position just like Brahma. I want full control over the universal affairs. So, keeping that in mind, he actually went to the forest to perform austerities. Tapaha. Now, tapaha can be performed for various purposes. We have discussed this in the 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Tapaha can be done in Sattva Guna, in Rajoguna, in Tamoguna. When it is done for selfish purposes, harming one's own body and mind, it is tapa in Tamoguna. But Hiranyakashipu was so determined that he wanted to acquire unprecedented power that actually he went to the forest and he started performing deep penances. Very, very difficult penances. So the scriptures describe that Hiranyakashipu, he was standing on the toes of his feet with his arms upstretched, and he was meditating and praying to Lord Brahma. He fully controlled his senses. He stopped his eating and drinking and slowly came to the point of even controlling his breath. And he had acquired such mastery over the mechanical yogic process that he was able to hold his prana inside his body and remain alive even as he was in that situation, practically not breathing. As he was standing in that position, as he was performing intense tapasya, it is said his tapasya was intense and it went on for 100 years of the devatas. So one day of the devatas is actually 1 year on earth. So you can assume how many earth years he was performing that tapasya. And as he was performing the tapasya, he was doing it in such a way that such kind of heat was emanating from his body that it was actually scorching the whole universe. The higher planets, the heavens, the lower planets, all of them started feeling the heat of the intense austerity of Hiranyakashipu. This was very unusual because so many sages had performed austerities, but this kind of intensity where practically the universe was feeling the heat. Because his tapa was so intense that it was emanating a kind of heat which became intolerable. The devas also had to run away from their respective kingdoms, and they were all approaching Brahma and requesting him for help. They were telling Brahma, please, you go and try to solve the matter because he is praying for you to appear. But he has very evil, sinister designs, so please be careful. Now, another story on the side that as Hiranyakashipu was performing his penances, in parallel, his wife was pregnant at that time. His wife's name is Kayadhu. She was pregnant with Prahlad in her womb. And Hiranyakashipu had kept Kayadu, his wife, in the care of Narada Muni in his ashram to protect her. In fact, the episode goes like this, that while Hiranyakashipu was away, the Devas attacked Kayadu because they were thinking that the son of Hiranyakashipu would be another very powerful demon. So let us eliminate the progeny, the children of Hiranyakashipu, even before they are born. So they actually attacked, Indra and others attacked Kayadu, but Narad Muni intervened and told Indra, what is this that you are doing? This is very heinous. And Indra said, no, but this is it is a snake waiting to be born. But Narad Muni said, no, I know who this child is. He is not an enemy of the Lord. Rather, he's a very great devotee of the Lord. So you do not worry. And he sent the Devas back. The Devas respected what Narad Muni said. And Narad Muni gave protection to Kayadu in his ashram. And while Kayadu was staying in the ashram of Narada Muni, what was happening? When you stay in an ashram, what happens? No cable TV, no film songs, yeah, only the discussion on the glories of the Lord. So, in fact, Narad Muni would be narrating to Kayadhu various topics about the glories of the Lord, about the glories of Bhakti, about how to become a devotee of the Lord. As he was narrating, it is said that Prahlad, who was within the womb of his mother, he was hearing with greater interest these beautiful pastimes than his mother. Sometimes the mother would fall asleep. Yeah. Sometimes, we are, if we do not have sufficient taste in the glories of the Lord, when we hear the glories of the Lord, we feel sleepy. Sometimes she would fall asleep. But Prahlad, who is in the womb of Kayadu, was hearing very, very attentively, and he was getting transformed. And Narada knew that because actually Narada was instructing Prahlad. Prahlad was his disciple. He was instructing Prahlad because he knew for what purpose Prahlad had come and that he's an extraordinarily great soul. So this is what was happening, and eventually Kayadu gave birth to Prahlad in the ashram of Narada Muni. Okay, so this is a story happening on the side. Meanwhile, being harassed by the heat from the tapasya of Hiranyakashipu, the Devas, after having gone to Brahmaji, understanding the situation, decided to come over to earth to try to settle the matter with Hiranyakashipu in terms of what he wanted. It is said when Lord Brahma came to earth, when he was trying to look around for where is Hiranyakashipu, he couldn't see. Why? Because Hiranyakashipu had been doing penance for so long that his entire body had been covered over by an ant hill. Bamboos and grass and other plants had grown over it. So even couldn't even make out where he is. Finally, when Brahmaji understood that the sound is coming from here, the heat is coming from this ant hill, he took some water from his kamandalu and sprinkled it on Hiranyakashipu. Now, mind you, the scriptures describe that at this point in time, can you imagine on top of your body if an ant hill grows? Do you think your body is going to be spared? It is said the ants in the ant hill practically ate all the flesh on the body of Hiranyakashipu. But the extraordinary thing about him is he still, through yogic power, managed to keep his prana inside his bones and he still didn't die. That was very extraordinary. Practically nobody can do this. And that is what amazed Brahma, because nobody has done such kind of tapasya or displayed such kind of an ability to do tapasya to an extent that they still hold their life air, the prana, even when practically the body is almost destroyed because of intense austerity. So when Brahmaji took water from his kamandalu and sprinkled it over this practically a skeleton of Hiranyakashipu's body, instantly by that divine water, Hiranyakashipu's body was restored instantly to an extremely youthful, beautiful, and strong form. So strong that even it can take Indra's Vajra's attack without succumbing to it. That was the kind of body which Brahmaji gave to uh, Hiranyakashipu. So when Brahmaji saw Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyakashipu saw Brahma, Hiranyakashipu was so overwhelmed with happiness. He fell at the feet of Brahma and started glorifying him. He was so happy. He was so happy that he had now such a beautiful, powerful body. And he started glorifying Brahma. And Brahma was also so impressed. He told Hiranyakashipu, you have done something so extraordinary. What is it that you want? You please tell me. Initially, Hiranyakashipu asked to become immortal. I don't want to die. Brahmaji said, I cannot give you something which I myself do not have. Correct? How can we give to something to somebody which we ourselves do not have? All the devas also need to die. And Krishna has mentioned this in the Bhagavad Gita also. A Brahma Bhavana Loka Punar Avartino Arjuna. Am Upetyato Kaunteya Punar Janmana Vidyate. All the way up to Brahma's abode, everybody has to die. Only those who come to my abode are free from death, Lord Krishna says. So Brahma says, I also have to die. One day I have to die. I have the longest life amongst all living entities. I am born when the universe is born. I die when the universe dies and is destroyed by Lord Vishnu through the agency of Lord Shiva. But I still have to die. So if I am not immortal, how can I give you immortality? Ask for something else. So Hiranyakashipu tries to be extra smart. He comes up with a way, in such a way that he will remain alive no matter what. So he asked for a boon in a roundabout way. I think many of you are familiar with the boon. He essentially says that I will never have any old age or disease. My body will always be full of strength and full of vigor, and I will always be perfectly healthy. Besides that, nobody can kill me. Any living entity which has been created by you, Brahma, cannot kill me. Neither Devatas, nor Rakshasas, nor human beings. I cannot be killed inside the house or outside the house, in the sky or on the ground or in the water, not by any weapons. And beyond that, he also asked for a very special power. He said, give me control over all living entities. All the devatas also, I want control over them. And also give me the 8 mystic siddhis which the yogis attain when they achieve the perfection of their yoga. Anima, Lagima, Prapti. These are amazing siddhis. Siddhis by which one can create planets at will, disappear at will, become atomic at will, become unlimitedly big at will, achieve anything they want simply by desiring. Those kind of mystic powers, Hiranyakashipu asked. And Brahma was surprised. Brahma said, what you are asking for Hiranyakashipu has never been given. But even what you have done as your austerity has also never been done. So I think for what you have done, you deserve this. And he gave that blessing which Hiranyakashipu asked to Hiranyakashipu. So practically, for almost all practical purposes, he almost achieved a level of power above all the devatas, almost as good as Brahma. Not exactly equal to Brahma, but almost as good as Brahma. He has control over all the devatas. He has control over all the lokas. He has control over all the living entities. The whole universal affairs were in his control. And you know what he was thinking? The scripture says he was thinking he wanted to change the way the rules of the universe work. He wanted performance of tapa, yajna, dana to be punishable as bad karma, and sinful bad activities to be rewarded as good karma. He wanted to make the laws of karma opposite. So, when he got these powers, Hiranyakashipu was happy beyond imagination. And he has such extraordinary control over practically all the departments of the universe. So you can imagine, with that kind of control and with a heart full of hatred for Vedic culture, for Lord Vishnu, for the Brahmanas and the devotees of the Lord, imagine the kind of havoc he created across the universe. He was already asking his soldiers to go around and create trouble, but now he was personally harassing all the devatas. Practically all the devatas fled from their respective abodes, and all of them were acting as his servants. Practically acting as his servants. It is said, there is a verse in the Bhagavad that says, other than Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, and Lord Brahma, everybody else was under the control of Hiranyakashipu. That was the power he attained. Never earlier in the history of existence anybody had achieved this kind of power, and probably nobody can achieve an equivalent, because nobody did the kind of austerities he did. It was practically an absolute control. So Hiranyakashipu is actually representing the pinnacle of material achievement. Yes, what more can you ask for? We are fighting here for some promotion, for a bungalow, for a car, for a good husband or wife, for certain good things to happen in our life. And that's as far as our imagination goes and as far as our efforts go. Of course, sometimes our imagination may go more, but there's nothing much we can do to make a significant change. Look at what Hiranyakashipu achieved. Practically absolute control over the universe. It is said that he was so powerful that if he felt that the day is a bit hot and the temperature is high, he would simply look at the sun. He would give a look at the sun and he would raise his eyebrows, and immediately Surya Dev would adjust the temperature to ensure that it is pleasant for Hiranyakashipu. And there are many such descriptions given in the Bhagavad. I am not making this up. This is all mentioned in the scriptures. Practically all the devatas would make sure that the universal things work in such a way so that he is happy. So that is the kind of perfection he achieved. But do you know what? After having described all this extraordinary attainment of Hiranyakashipu, the Bhagavad describes, even after all this, Hiranyakashipu was still not happy and satisfied. After achieving practically the maximum possible attainment materially, he was still not happy. Why? Because he had not controlled his mind and senses. So, as they say, if you do not work on the basics properly, no matter what you build, it's all going to be not built on a strong foundation. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has already said, Ashantasya kuto sukham. Na abhavetah shanti. Ashantasya kuto sukham. Unless you are connected to the Lord and you have controlled your mind and senses, you will not find peace. And if you do not have peace, you cannot get happiness. Happiness is not simply a function of success or achievement. Without peace, without a controlled mind and senses, one cannot get a deeper sense of or a lasting happiness and peace. So Hiranyakashipu was disturbed. And not just that, all the time he was plotting how I will kill Vishnu, how I will kill Vishnu. So practically he was disturbed in spite of all this. Now, as all this was happening, of course, he had come back home. Prahlad, Kayadu came back to him and were staying with him in the palace. Little Prahlad, from his very birth, extremely gentle, extremely devoted. He was a very, very extraordinary child. So, in the community of spiritual practitioners, if somebody wants a child, they say, I want a child like Prahlad. Why? Because he's the perfect kind of child that somebody would want. All good qualities, very peaceful, very nice, very well behaved, very kind words, very respectful, very obedient. You name the good quality and he has it. Very gentle, very nice. But above all, his mind was always absorbed in the Supreme Lord. In fact, it is said Prahlad would be absorbed in ecstasies of the Lord. Sometimes he would just jump and start dancing in kirtan. Sometimes he would just start, tears would roll down in his eyes as he would remember the Lord. So he would show great devotional symptoms at a very, very early age. So this is around when he was 5-ish, Prahlad. So Hiranyakashipu's ambition, like any other father, was that my son Prahlad should also become a great asura like me. So he wanted to give him the best of education. So the topmost university was actually run by Hiranyakashipu himself. And the chancellor of that university was actually Shukracharya, the guru of the asuras. And his two sons, Shanda and Amarka, the two sons of Shukracharya, were actually the professors, the senior professors in that particular university. So that is where the children of the topmost demons, Hiranyakashipu and his immediate subordinates, would go. And there they would be taught all the subjects a demon needs to know. Now, when we talk about demon and when we talk about devotee, what is the essential difference in the education? The essential difference is, while language, maths, physics, as sciences, and various other subjects like languages may be taught in every school, the focus of a materialistic school like that of which was run under Hiranyakashipu was that all the children there were taught how ultimately everything has to be used for your own enjoyment. The worldview taught to them was that actually this world is for enjoyment and everything is for enjoyment. You can do by hook or crook, kill your enemies, destroy enemies, use diplomacy, whatever way, through a very divisive vision, how you should conquer, capture, destroy opposition, and enjoy. And that is essentially the conclusive approach that the demons have. And the worldview of the Devas is exactly opposite, because the Devas are trained. Vishnu Bhakta Smrita Daiva Asura Tad Viparyayaha. The Devas are trained in a divine vision. What is the vision of the Devas? Yes, all these things are there. Whatever the Asuras are also being taught, yes, all these things are there. But where are they coming from? They are coming from the Lord. And what is their purpose? Their purpose is to engage all these things in the service of the Lord. They belong to Him. We also belong to Him. So the greatest satisfaction that we can get is by engaging ourselves and everything that is coming from the Lord, the service of the Lord. Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam, Bhakti Ruchyate. Use the senses to serve the Lord of the senses, Rishikesha. That is the objective. So it's like day and night. One is looking inward towards the Lord, one is looking outward towards sense enjoyment. That's why the Gita says day and night. The day for the spiritualist is night for the materialist, and the day for the materialist is night for the spiritualist. So Prahlad was forced to go into this school. He was actually least interested in whatever was being taught. But being a polite, obedient child and understanding that this is how the nature of the demons is, he would just sit quietly and they would speak and he would just keep quietly remembering the Lord in his heart. He was never interested in any of the materialistic subjects. And this went on for some time. Then one day, Prahlad happened to come in the presence of Hiranyakashipu. He came into the presence of Hiranyakashipu, and Hiranyakashipu was overwhelmed by seeing Prahlad. He was feeling so affectionate seeing his child, and he embraced Prahlad and got him to sit near him. And he asked Prahlad, Prahlad, I hope your studies are going on well. How are you enjoying your studies? What is it that you have learned? So when he said like that, because Hiranyakashipu's expectation was that Prahlad will speak something about various divisive political strategies that are being taught in the school of the demons. But Prahlad said, when he was asked what subject do you like the most, he says, I like the topics of devotional service of the Lord. All those who have a materialistic mentality, such people are only going forward in the path of suffering because of their attachment for materialistic things. And such people should actually give up their materialistic ways and take to the devotional service of the Lord. Better they go to the forest. Vanam gato yat harim ashrayeta. That you should go to the forest and take shelter of the Lord, because all these materialistic affairs are useless. That is what I enjoyed studying. And Hiranyakashipu was shocked. What is this that Prahlad is speaking? But at that point in time, he didn't get angry, because that was the first time. He started laughing. And he immediately called for Shanda and Amarka, the teachers, and he said, hey, what is going on? Who has polluted the mind of this child? Somebody has been telling him these wrong teachings. What is wrong teaching for the asuras? To develop devotion for the Lord is a wrong teaching. Somebody has been polluting his mind. Some agent, some spies of Vishnu have actually come in and penetrated, and they have contaminated his consciousness. So please be careful. Watch out. Make sure Prahlad is not contaminated. Keep a watch. You're not keeping a proper watch. So he sent Prahlad back with Shanda and Amarka. Shanda and Amarka are a bit agitated. What is happening? So they asked Prahlad, who is it that who has told you all these things? We didn't teach you all this. Where did you learn this from? This is the work of the enemies. Prahlad says, what is this friend? What is this enemy? There is nothing like friend and enemy. The vision that we must have is that everybody is equal, everybody is a spiritual soul. So Prahlad would always preach spiritually based on his deep realization. And he was trying to teach Shanda and Amarka that your vision is faulty. This vision actually leads to material suffering. You must also develop the vision of equanimity. And he told them, actually, nobody has taught me all these things. I am naturally attracted to the Lord right from my birth. So no need to blame anybody. So Shanda and Amarka chastised Prahlad, but then they said, okay, let us ensure he learns things properly. So they kept on instructing him on various topics related again to politics and the likes. Prahlad kept quiet. Shanda and Amarka thought, oh, okay, finally Prahlad has learned everything. Now he's a very good student. Now let us take him again and present him in front of Hiranyakashipu and demo how he is now so learned in all these subjects. So when Prahlad came again and he came near Hiranyakashipu again took him close and told him, please tell me what is the best thing that you have learned. What is the king of all the education? And Prahlad, without any hesitation and without any fear whatsoever, with great confidence, very peacefully, blissfully, he said, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Smaranam Pada Sevanam, Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakhyam Atmani Vedanam. He described the Navavidha Bhakti practice. He told Hiranyakashipu that Lord Vishnu must be served in these 9 ways. Hearing about him, Shravanam, Kirtanam, chanting about him. Smaranam, remembering him. Vandanam, offering him prayers, offering him worship, surrendering oneself, treating him as our friend, surrendering one's full self to him. So in these various ways, 9 ways, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, serving his lotus feet, Archanam, worship, Vandanam, prayer, Dasyam, serving him, Sakhyam, Atma Nivedanam, treating him as a friend and surrendering oneself fully. These 9 limbs of bhakti and learning them and practicing them are actually the ultimate culmination of education. So if you ask me the question, what is the topmost thing that you have learned? This is the topmost thing I have learned. Of course, you didn't learn this topmost thing in Shanda and Amarka school, but that was not the question. The question was, what is the topmost thing that you have learned? He said, this is the topmost thing. And he was encouraging his father, you should also do this only. Because this divisive vision is not good. Because very gently and affectionately he told. But this time, Hiranyakashipu was furious beyond comparison. Prahlad was sitting on his lap. He pushed Prahlad down. He threw him on the floor. He started shouting at Shanda and Amarka. What is this? I told you to train him properly, but see, he is just getting worse and worse. And at that time, Hiranyakashipu, he came to the conclusion that there is no point trying to work on this Prahlad anymore. He needs to be killed immediately. Because he, according to Hiranyakashipu, is like a poison who will actually contaminate everybody. He will eventually destroy my family. I am the biggest enemy of Vishnu. And Vishnu's greatest devotee is my son. This is the worst thing that can happen. So immediately Hiranyakashipu, who was so affectionate for a moment, when he realized that Prahlad is a threat to him, his love changed to hate. Immediately he decided Prahlad should be killed. He immediately ordered his guards, kill him now. They immediately attacked him with swords. But even when they would hit him with swords, the weapons would break. The sword would break, the spears would break, and Prahlad's body would not even be bruised. Prahlad would simply be standing there, deeply meditating on the Lord and chanting his holy names, remaining happy, remaining blissful without any disturbance. Seeing that weapons are not affecting him, Hiranyakashipu adopted many other means to try to kill Prahlad. Numerous, I may not be able to list everything. Some among them, he tried to throw him from mountain cliffs. He tried to tie him with stones and drown him in the bottom of the water. He put him in a pit of venomous snakes. And through all these situations, he wouldn't perish. Deep in the sea also he wouldn't die. When thrown down also the Lord would catch him and he wouldn't die. He threw boulders of huge stones on top of Prahlad. He wouldn't be crushed. He tried to get him crushed under elephant. He wouldn't. He used his sister Holika, who had a boon that fire wouldn't burn her. Holika kept Prahlad on her lap and entered into fire. But rather than Prahlad burning, Holika herself was burnt to ashes. Because the boon that she was given by Lord Brahma, she abused to hurt a great devotee of the Lord, Lord Brahma. He withdrew that benediction. And in fact, she herself was consumed by the flames. And that is the occasion we celebrate as the holy day, where Holika Dahan is done, the burning of Holika, which symbolizes the burning of inauspicious things in our heart. So no matter what Hiranyakashipu tried every possible trick. Many more things also he tried. He tried poison like this. He tried poison through snakes. He tried spells and magic, illusion, weapons, everything. Prahlad was not affected in the least, nor was he even demoralized a little bit. Hiranyakashipu was demoralized. He became very fearful. He said, this 5-year-old boy is so powerful, so powerful. With all my power, I am not able to kill him. This is a very dangerous situation. Surely this person is going to be the cause of my death. There is some big conspiracy going against me. So as he was thinking like this, helplessly, because he was not able to kill Prahlad, Shanda and Amarka came and they told Hiranyakashipu, yeah, we understand why you are very worried and very upset. But our suggestion is, he's still a boy. Oh, yes, he's very powerful. We are unable to kill him. But it doesn't mean that he will go against you and kill you. No, he's so gentle and so nice. Just don't mind him so much. As he grows up, he will realize all these foolish ideas he has about devotion will go away. So don't worry, we'll take him to school, let him grow up. Over time, all these things will go away. Do not worry too much. So somehow Hiranyakashipu thought he must believe in that and hope that, things will work out all right. Because anyway, he didn't have a choice. So he said, okay, you take him back. So Prahlad went back to school. At school, the teachers continued to teach him and keep a watch on him and try to brainwash him into being a demon, having the mentality like the other asuras. Again, Prahlad was not bothered. Now, something interesting started happening from this point on. That whenever in school, the teachers of Prahlad and the other students, because all the other students were the children of the other asuras, who are the followers of Hiranyakashipu, when the teachers would go off to attend to some religious duties and rituals and other things, and they would leave the students alone in the classroom, rather than playing, Prahlad would organize and gather all the children and start teaching them the philosophy of the Bhagavad. He would start telling them the glories of the Lord. And the children would say, why you are telling us all these big, big things? We are just children. Let us just play. Why do we need this? We can understand all these things when we grow old. Now is the time to play. Allah says, no. That from childhood, one must learn this dharma of developing devotion for the Lord. Kaumaram acharit pragyo dharmam bhagavatan iha. This Bhagavad Dharma should be practiced from childhood, because if you do not practice it and learn it from now, if you lead a materialistic life throughout your life, do you think you can mend your ways when you get old? You cannot teach old dog new tricks. You will not be able to realign your consciousness. Your whole life will get wasted. Your childhood will be spoilt in play. Your youth will be spoilt in just working hard and trying to enjoy money. You will get old and your body will be full of diseases. You'll have no time for the highest realization. So he went on teaching like this and encouraged the fellow students to also practice spiritual life. So the children started developing great interest. Prahlad is so pure, and he was himself such a supreme example of devotion and steadiness and peace and happiness that they got so attracted to him. They would sit around him and they would listen to his classes. And then he would do kirtan, and all of them would also join the kirtan. And they would all be dancing, chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So one day, as this was happening and a kirtan was going on like this with the students, Chanda and Amarka, who had temporarily gone out, they came back into the classroom, shocked beyond belief as to what was going on. There was a wonderful, uproarious kirtan of the chanting of the names of Lord Vishnu going on. They were shocked. They were so angry. They immediately grabbed Prahlad and dragged him to the palace of Hiranyakashipu. And they presented him in front of Hiranyakashipu and said that this has gone too far. Earlier, he was spoiled only himself. Now he's spoiling all the demons. Eventually, all the students of all the demons will actually all become devotees. Everybody is worshipping Lord Vishnu rather than worshipping you. What will happen if this continues? This is very dangerous. And this person is a very dangerous student. We don't want him in our school. So Hiranyakashipu was again besides himself. He didn't know what to do because he had already tried everything that he could do to kill Prahlad, but Prahlad wasn't impacted. Sort of frustration. Hiranyakashipu told Prahlad, Prahlad, you have such extraordinary power. Where are you getting this power from? Please tell me. Prahlad, very humbly, very peaceful way, he tells his father Hiranyakashipu, my dear father, I am getting my power from the same place where you are getting your power. And that is from Lord Vishnu. Because when Hiranyakashipu heard that, he was even further enraged. So he was so angry. He said, Vishnu, 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 I am so frustrated hearing this name of Vishnu and you are always thinking of him. I want to kill him now. Tell me, where is this Vishnu? I've been searching for him all over the universe, but I can't find him. Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? I said, he's everywhere. No, don't give me this answer everywhere. I cannot find a person who's everywhere. You tell me very specifically because I've been looking for him everywhere. He's within everything. He's present. Andantarastha paramanu chayantarastham. In each and every atom everywhere. He says, no, no, no. You tell me, is he in this pillar? I said, yes. He's also in this pillar. Okay, if he is in this pillar, I am going to take him out and kill him today itself. So as he said like that, and he was about to attack that pillar, the Lord manifested himself in a very special form. Now something very interesting happened. That time, when this particular conversation was happening, and when he was about to break the pillar, was around dusk. Yeah, you can see the scene behind me. It's like dusk time. The sun is just about setting, and it is dusk time. So it was closing to dusk time. Dusk time means it's neither day nor night, because day is almost practically ended. Night hasn't actually started. And there was actually one more benediction which was given, which was that he could neither be killed in the day nor in the night. I think I probably missed mentioning that earlier. So twilight was coming. That is neither day nor night. So I had that time when Hiranyakashipu was told by Prahlad, yes, Lord Vishnu is also in the pillar. He actually slammed the pillar so hard. And it is said when he slammed the pillar, actually the pillar exploded. And from inside the pillar, a huge roaring sound came. A roar so loud that all the three worlds would vibrate and shake in fear. A roar like one never heard in existence earlier. And from that pillar emerged a huge, powerful, ferocious form. A form also which nobody had ever seen. What kind of form? Hiranyakashipu was startled. He took few steps behind. He saying, "What is this? Who is this? Where is the sound coming from?" And as his vision started getting cleared, as the pillar broke apart, he saw a huge form of an entity who had the body of a human being, the face of a lion, the claws and the paws of a lion, but the rest of the body was like a human being. Half Nara, half Simha. Nara, Simha. And he's wondering, what kind of species is this? This species is not a Devata. This species is not a human. It's not even an animal. And amongst the 84 lakh species of life created by Brahma, this is not one of them. And he's wondering, what is this? Who's the species? So he started thinking, yes, this must be Vishnu who has come to protect this devotee Prahlad. So once he heard that, and once he saw that, he actually jumped and attacked Lord Narasimha. And a very beautiful battle ensued. Actually, Lord Narasimha, being so extraordinarily powerful, actually could have finished Hiranyakashipu in a moment. But he was playing with him just like a cat plays with a mouse. Sometimes the cat holds the mouse, catches it, but doesn't kill it immediately. Let the rat go, let the mouse go, he runs, then again she goes and catches him. So the Lord was playing with Hiranyakashipu for a long time because he was waiting for the right time. Hiranyakashipu tried all the tricks in the game. He tried illusion, he tried his mystic powers, he tried all his weapons. No matter what, nothing would happen. In fact, Lord Narsingha is so powerful that even the armies of Hiranyakashipu, as they were attacking, just with his nails, he took such a huge form, he would just rip apart the armies of Hiranyakashipu with his nails. Shila Tankanakhalaye. So it was a very, very extraordinary, externally a very gory and scary scene, but for the devotees, very pleasurable because the Lord is showing his beautiful pastime of protecting his devotee and destroying the demons. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkrita. Finally, when the right time came, which was the exact twilight hour, Lord Narsingha dragged Hiranyakashipu to the entrance of the house, the veranda, which is neither inside the house nor outside the house. Then he grabbed him and he put him on his thighs in such a way that Hiranyakashipu is neither in the sky nor is he on the ground. Then, without using any weapon, the Lord used his nails and tore into the abdomen of Hiranyakashipu and split it apart. He tore it straight apart and literally plucked out the intestines of Hiranyakashipu and killed him. And as this was happening, all the devatas, they got very excited, they got very happy. Finally, Hiranyakashipu has been slain. And in such a beautiful way that Lord Vishnu, in this form of Lord Narasimha, fulfilled all the benedictions of Brahma. He didn't break any of the benedictions of Brahma, even though he was not obliged. He could have transgressed them. Because the Lord is not obliged, but he respected Brahma's benediction. and performed this pastime in such a way that both Brahma's benedictions were kept. At the same time, the promise that the Lord gave to the Devas that I will finish Hiranyakashipu was also fulfilled in a beautiful way. And after Hiranyakashipu was killed and he was thrown off the lap of Narsingadev, the Lord was so very angry, so very angry. He was still so fierce. He wouldn't be pacified because the Lord couldn't tolerate the kind of trouble that Prahlad was put through. And it is said, since we are shooting about time, very briefly I'm concluding. Just give me 2-3 more minutes. It is said Prahlad was standing there nearby and he was praying to the Lord very beautifully. All the devatas gathered and they were seeing that Narsingha is still so angry and so fierce. They all tried to pacify the Lord, but the Lord couldn't be pacified. In fact, both Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, they were not even willing to go near the Lord. They are saying the Lord is in a very angry form. He's practically unapproachable. So then they asked Lakshmi Devi, they told Lakshmi that you are the wife of the Lord, you should go and pacify him. So Lakshmi Devi said, sorry, normally I would have gone, but this form of my husband I have never seen. This form of my husband is too fierce. I also don't want to go near. Then finally all of them agreed and they looked at Prahlad and they told Prahlad, Prahlad, the Lord has come for you and he's angry because of you. So the only one who can pacify him is you. So Prahlad took a beautiful garland, went near the Lord. The Lord put his hand on the head of Prahlad, caressed him, put him on his lap, and affectionately, because he's a lion, affectionately started licking Prahlad like a lion licks and affectionately his own cub. And on seeing Prahlad and taking Prahlad close to him, the Lord finally became pacified. And often this beautiful darshan of the Lord is there, Prahlad and Narasimha, where the Lord is pacified, where Prahlad is either standing close to him or he is shown sitting on the lap of Lord Narasimha. So this is a very beautiful pastime of how Hiranyakashipu was finally killed, the universe was saved and liberated, and Prahlad was handed over the kingdom to rule. Actually, Lord Narsingha told Prahlad, ask for a benediction, ask for anything you want. I said, no, I don't want anything. No, ask. Prahlad refused. He said, oh Lord, if I ask from you something, then it will become like business. That I did your bhakti and when you came, I asked for something and you gave that. I don't want a merchant transaction with you. I just love you. And I just want to continue to love you. I don't want to put a price tag on our love. I don't want it to be a commercial transaction. The Lord says, yes, I understand you have not done for that, but I want to offer you something. Ask, ask, ask. Finally, when the Lord insisted and he understood that the Lord wants to give him something, he says, okay, you want to give me something, give me two things. First, please deliver my father. After all, he's my father. Please give him liberation. He has been so naughty and notorious, but I request you, please give him. Done. Narsingha says, what to speak of your father? Even before you have asked Prahlad, 21 generations of yours I have delivered. In fact, any house in which a pure devotee of the Lord is there, 21 generations. That generation 10 above and 10 under are liberated. He's already liberated. Ask something more, that is done. Then he says, may I never ever forget you. Please give me that benediction. And also give me this benediction that as long as there are living entities forgetful of you, wandering in this world, trying to find enjoyness in matter, forgetting you and actually suffering, please give me the benediction that I will come again and again here in this world to help such living entities remember you and attain your lotus. So Prahlad remained thoroughly selfless all throughout. Not only did he not ask something for himself, in fact, he said, I will remain here to serve you. And serve you in what way? By helping others to attain your lotus feet. Yeah. That is why even in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says this service is most dear to him. Because by this service, the highest benefit is achieved by the jivas. So this brings us to the conclusion. Apologies, I have narrated the pastime, in a very concise way. There are so many beautiful details, and I have not been able to go into that. There are so many variations and so many episodes within each of these smaller scenes. But I have been very fast because I thought at least let us have a full view. Some of you probably may have not heard the full pastime earlier. So please do read the Srimad Bhagavat, 7th canto. And many beautiful teachings are there by Prahlad. And you'll be amazed how a boy of 5 years can give such profound teachings. The example of Prahlad is amongst the most extraordinary examples of a devotee who is fixed in the Lord's service under all conditions. And his devotion is a perfect example. In fact, Narad Muni says, wherever there is any discussion of great devotees of the Lord, the name of Prahlad will be taken in that discussion. That is the stature of Prahlad. And he perfected his consciousness through always remembering the Lord. So we can also perfect our consciousness like Prahlad by always remembering the Lord. And how do we perfect remembrance of the Lord? The easiest way to remember the Lord always is by chanting the Lord's holy names. Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Eva Kevalam, Kalau Nastaiva Nastaiva, Nastaiva, Gatir Anyatha. Scriptures say in Kali Yuga, the simplest way to always remember the Lord and be absorbed in Him is chanting. Otherwise, if you are simply busy doing our things to fix our mind on the Lord, is practically impossible. So as far as possible, Krishna already said that to Arjun. Mama Anusmara Yudhyacha. As you're going about doing your duties, remember me. But how to remember Him? The easiest way to remember Him is by chanting His holy names. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommended to all of us, chant especially the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which is so simple and accessible to everyone. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bhagwan Shri Narsingadev Bhagavan ki jai. Bhaktaraj Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Okay, so thank you. Any questions? Okay, so thank you for tolerating. We went a little bit above. So if there are no questions, so we will resume our aspects of divinity discussion next Wednesday. So again, very quickly, for those who joined late, we will do our Wednesday and Saturday class at 9 p.m. Malaysia time, which is 6:30 p.m. India time. We'll try to keep to that time as far as possible. So do dial in accordingly. And all these classes we will upload to YouTube soon. But of course, keep joining live, because when we join live, there's a special energy of all of us together absorbed. Sankirtana, joint kirtan, even discussing like this is Sankirtana, because it's a joint glorification. One is speaking, but all others are absorbed in hearing and contemplating. So that produces a very powerful purifying energy. And that is collectively beneficial for each of us. As they say, team effort. Together, each achieves more. TEAM. Together, each achieves more. So when we chant together, when we hear together, when we sing together, the benefit that we all get individually is many, many times more than what we would have got if we would have spent the same time in the same activity alone. That is the beauty. Because the collective energy of many devotees together amplifies exponentially the power of the devotional energy which is generated and the way it attracts the grace of the Lord. So that is another very important principle which the scriptures repeatedly mention. Kalau Sanghe Shakti, especially in Kali Yuga, doing spiritual activities together gives us the strength. Otherwise, most of us are not strong like Prahlad. Prahlad was alone, but because he was a devotee of such a high stature, he could manage. Most of us are unable. That is why we have to remain together, keep together, help each other, inspire each other, discuss like this together. Then we get the strength to remain a devotee. Otherwise, even 0.00001% of what Prahlad went through, if it is thrown our way, we would have long forgotten the Lord, at least most of us. Okay, so thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.